Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Stallings, and I want to welcome you and tell you I appreciate so much you being here today. This is a very important thing that we're going to be talking about. A lot of awareness is going to be talked about, but it's going to be good. We've got experts up here that's going to talk, victims. We're going to talk about what has happened, what they're doing now to help with that. So I'm going to get that ball rolling. After we're done, we're going to open it up to questions. So if anyone has any questions for anyone on the panel afterwards, please make sure you ask. But as you know, probably myself, I was part of the families that were, children were sexually abused in the Martinsburg state, in the Mormon Church. And it went on for almost 6 years. But part of it's done, but our journey is just beginning, because we're going to fight and for our children and all other children. So we're going to get started. First up will be Sam Young, who is the founder of Protect Every Child, and a wonderful man. He was just working.
Is this microphone? Hello, hello. Can you hear that? Yes? Okay. So, my name is Sam Young. I'm a former Mormon bishop, founder of Protect LDS Children, which has now become Protect Every Child. I will no longer tolerate sex abuse of children in religious institutions. Did I ever tolerate it? Yes, I did. I read the news reports of the Catholic Church abuse. I saw the movie Spotlight. I shook my head in dismay and disgust. No more. Shaking my head does nothing to protect children anywhere. In 2017, I discovered that 10 years previous, 4 of my daughters were probed with sexually explicit questions, all alone behind a closed door, of a Mormon bishop. That set me off on the road of advocacy. In 2018, the actions of Protect LDS Children gathered tens of thousands of supporters and garnered widespread national and international press. Awareness was raised. Children were protected. Some children were protected. Most children in the Mormon Church were not protected. Last September, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, better known as the Mormon Church, responded by kicking me out. I am now an excommunicated Mormon bishop, but that will not push me back into the camp of tolerating child sex abuse. This year, our movement has expanded to Protect Every Child. Weekly, new abuse scandals come out in the news. Child abuse is everywhere. The Mormons, the Catholics, the Baptists, Jehovah's Witnesses, Hasidic Jewish communities, and I can go on and on and on. 2019 will be a historic moment. Society is rising up. Actually, we need to rise up as a group and hope society will follow. But society is going to rise up and demand universal child protection practices. To raise awareness, we are asking supporters to climb a mountain and save a child. Climb a mountain or a hill or even the top of your driveway. Unfurl a banner. Capture a picture and share it everywhere. Tell your family, your friends, your neighbors. This will raise great awareness. I really appreciate the 30 or so people that climbed a mountain. It was a lot longer climb than I expected. I'm looking forward to sitting down again here in a second. But thank you very much. This is just the start of what's going to happen all around the world. Hundreds of people have now told me they are going to be climbing mountains all across the United States in Germany, in Switzerland, in Australia, and so on.
Yeah.
There's no important message to shout from the tops of the mountains, protect every child. We need to be shouting that message so everybody hears. Unfurling banners on the mountaintops will culminate with a march on October 15th. October
Yes!
5th.
Thank you, Samuel.
So October 5th, march in Salt Lake City. Now women are marching all over the place for women. Good for them. LGBT are marching for LGBT. Good for them.
Yeah. Good for them.
African Americans, boy, they did it right. They marched for a very important cause of civil rights. Courageously marched to demand their rights. Our children cannot march for themselves. It's time we, the responsible adults in the room, march for our children. Not just our children, but for all children, for every child. In 2018, 1,000 people rallied in the streets of Salt Lake City. On October 5th, 5,000 child protection advocates will unfurl their mountaintop banners or driveway top banners during the Children's March in Salt Lake City. Now, what happened to the children in some of the families that are represented here never ever should have happened. I wish that we could go back and have done the marches and the banners and the mountaintops 20 years ago, and this would not be happening. We are marching so that it does not happen to the children of today or the children going forward. We are climbing and marching to assure our children of today are safe.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. We appreciate it, and it was a great time. Next will be Alice. I'll let her introduce herself and tell you her story.
My name is Alice. I work with the Mama Bear Effect to help prevent child sex abuse. We have 1 in 4 girls who are sexually abused and 1 in 6 boys. 90% of that is never reported. And it is 100% preventable. My children were abused by Michael Jensen, who is enabled and protected by Don Fischel, Matt Wickham, and Stephen Groh. Matt Wickham and Don Fischel were bishops. They knew everything from the get-go. Not once did they cooperate with the state police. When he was sent home from his mission, they met and they hid him from the police. They hid him in Matt Wickham's home. And then when his grandchildren were due, he asked Tom to let him stay at his house. The story was that he was to tell everyone he was sent home for a bicycle accident rehab. And I looked at my husband and I said that that is not right. There is something wrong. He promoted him and sent him on a mission. We asked, vehemently, Tom and I asked for firesides, private meetings within the church, combine the adult meetings, and they would not do that. Groh and Fischel denied us repeatedly. You might wonder how far this went within the church. And it went to the tip top. Monson knew. The Jensens flaunted when they moved to our ward how close they were with Monson, how close their families had been together. They made no doubt of where they stood within the church. I can say without a doubt that Monson knew because I spoke with Gifford Nielsen at a state conference when Matt Wickham was being sustained and put in for one of the counselors in the stake presidency. I asked him, how much do you know about what's going on? And he said, I know a little bit. The prophet has told me some. Grow at that time asked what we could have done different. I said, you should have held those firesides. You should have had those meetings. We needed to talk to the parents. The parents needed to talk to their children. And you swept it under the rug. And he said, you're right. My daughter, at the time, was a teenage. She was 14, 15 years old. She lost all of her friends. She had grown adults bullying her, but they were too much cowards to come and talk to me because they know where I stand. I mean, no qualms about who I am, and I'm a very blunt and honest person. So you can imagine I do not fit in very well with the church because I am not a submissive person.
Now we will hear from Kelly, and I'll let her explain what she is here and what she is doing.
Hi, as Alice had stated, we both are a part of the families that sued the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints last year. Our lawsuit took about 6 years to come to pass. My children were abused by Michael Jensen in his home, while his mom, Sandra Lee, pressured myself and my husband at the time to go to the meeting house for a Boy Scouts of America meeting, because we were going to lose our membership with the Boy Scouts of America if we did not go. We tried to explain to her that with having young children and being new to the ward, that we could not go together, that we needed to alternate in order to make sure that our callings as BSA members would still suffice for what the church needed. She insisted that we must be there together, that this would be the only meeting that we could go to, and that Michael would be able to babysit our children under the guidance of herself and her husband. When we went to their house, her son came up from the basement, dressed as if he had just woken up. Kind of felt a little bit funny about that. You know, generally not used to having boys watch your children, but to come up and not really be interested in babysitting is kind of a little strange. Sandra Lee insisted that everything would be okay. Myself and my children's father proceeded to go to the meeting house. When we got there, Christopher Jensen, Michael's father, and his younger brother were coming out of the church and going over to their shed. I thought, okay, well they're here, but she's still at the house. We proceeded to go into the primary room where the meeting was being held. We began the meeting and having talks about what we needed to know as being leaders. And Sandra Lee walks in and proceeds to sit down. So I've now seen both Michael's mother and father at the meeting house. Something didn't seem right, but I had guidance from the church that everything would be okay. Within that BSA meeting, we were told to know and to understand that there was a 2-deep rule and that sexual abuse was not going to be tolerated within the BSA program. In those moments, my boys were being molested by Michael Jensen in his home, in their basement. As soon as I saw Chris come into the primary room, I looked to my husband and I said, we need to leave. We proceeded to go to Michael Jensen's house while Sandra Lee and Christopher Jensen were still at the church. He came, opened the door, and was clothed in different clothing. He went from having a white t-shirt to a black t-shirt. He went from having dark shorts to blue. Now I say this because 5 years later, after my younger son multiple times tried to commit suicide and tried to hurt me as well as the siblings, we found out that Michael Jensen had been molesting children. I have been taught through my career on how to approach children correctly so that you don't lead them in their conversations. I showed my son the picture of Michael Jensen and I asked him if he remembered who that was. He kind of looked shy and he said, yeah, he was 8 at this time. I said, "Do you remember who he is and why you know him?" "Yeah." We had begun a journal about 3 months prior because we thought, well, maybe he's bipolar because it runs in my family. We had a pediatrician actually tell us that it was not bipolar, that these were calculated behaviors, and we had to figure out psychologically what was wrong. When I showed him Michael Jensen's picture, and I asked him why he knew him, he proceeded to tell me that Michael Jensen in the bathroom of that basement began to fondle him at 3 years old. For 2 months, my son was able to handle himself appropriately, and he was able to do well. I come before you to be able to expect you to understand that my job in this moment is to educate parents and to educate children, to help them understand what to look for. Pedophiles are conditioned, and this is their career. This is how they make their job and they satisfy urges. This is not the general practice of health education in schools. This is not the general knowledge of what parents learn when they go to schools and are told what the health educational program is going to be taught to their children. You have the right and the ability to understand what to look for, what to ask for. These children are being abused by people who will give them the ability to report in a way that you have no idea they're saying it. Michael Jensen abused one child with a cat ball and told her that if it rang, I will touch you there. She proceeded to tell her mom that she played ball with Michael Jensen, and she told her not to play ball anymore. Had she probed further, she would have found out that Michael Jensen was molesting her daughter by using a cat ball. It was a toy. I want you to understand that when we're standing here, we're also trying to change the policies and procedures of the church. We want them to be accountable for what they're doing, and we want to make sure that their policies change to protect children everywhere.
I prayed about it, and I got the answer that it was time to take a stand, and I had to protect my children, and I had to protect and do all I could to protect other children because the church wasn't doing anything to protect them. And I have a quote that's gotten me through the last 5 or 6 years, and it's one of my favorites. There will be a time when we must choose between what is easy and what is right. And I chose in my heart what I felt was right. In the article, many false statements were made. One of them was that they tried to contact our lawyers. This was a lie. It was made public that Tim Kosnoff actually gave Tad a response, and here's what he said. He said, Tad, ask Curtin McConkey to provide you with the deposition transcripts and the trial transcripts. The church leaders, its communications department, and its lawyers lie with impunity. You can publish their lies, or you can demand evidence from them supporting their baseless assertions. I'm not going to trouble my clients with this nonsense. Ask the church about their efforts to silence these families and to suppress ABC's Nightline story, which is going to air on May 22nd. Regards, Tim Kosnoff.
Thank you.
Yes, in fact, they even stated in the article that the church has invested heavily in resources and training, including the helpline, to prevent, combat, and address abuse. Yes, the church has heavily invested in the helpline. Lawyers are not cheap. The rest of their statement is a lie and sickens me every time I say it. They do tolerate abuse, as they harbored and protected a pedophile. They knew why he was brought back from his mission. Bishop Whitcomb, Bishop Bishel, and President Grow all knew Jensen had issues. Grow said Michael would be a great influence for my family as we were helping our oldest son prepare for a mission.
Okay.
When did he combat and address the abuse? Not for my children, not for the others hurt. Later in the article, Hawkins said, "The case is a positive example of the church's local leaders correctly using the hotline system and generating a criminal report." They bring up the hotline a lot in the article. They keep telling us what it supposedly means, but I don't think they understand what it, or they know what it means themselves. I mean, it is not what they say it is. Since the church leaders, not one, called and reported abuse that was happening in our stake, my only conclusion is that they were told not to report it, and that is my opinion. In the article, they said, tragically, a number of children were abused by a teenage member of the church, Michael Jensen, while babysitting or vacationing or temporarily residing in their homes. Michael was an adult when he abused my children. He goes on to say both versions of the story incorrectly reported the church's name multiple times. Why the hell does the church care more about what they are called than the abuse of children?
Yes, thank you.
They also said that West Virginia clergy requires clergy to report abuse. West Virginia requires clergy to report abuse allegations, and Hawkins said that contrary to Vice's reporting, the church complied with every reporting requirement in the Jensen's cases. Eschball, who was one of the officers in the case, said that he had contacted the church's bishop, Chris Vincent, about the whereabouts of Jensen in order to question him. According to Eschball, Vincent said he would make some calls to get Jensen back to West Virginia. Eschball said he was waiting on a call from the church because he had asked Vincent to let him know when Jensen returned, but never received such a call. He also said he talked with Jensen's mother, Sandra Lee Jensen, who did not know when her son was supposed to return. Instead, Eschball learned from one of the victim's parents that Michael Jensen had returned home in March of 2012. He then contacted Michael Jensen for an interview, and Michael declined. Eschball did testify, however, that he did not know who told him not to talk to the police. Jensen said he did not have an attorney but would be seeking one. In conclusion, I just want to make sure I got everything. Yeah, I did. Except for one thing, I have to say this. As far as what happened, there it is, sorry. Speaking of the officer, it referred to one of the victim's parents going to, or letting him know where Michael Jensen was. And that was my friend Spring. And she was in the Vice News broadcast, and she has a statement she wanted me to read. She says, "I did tell Vice that I also called the first counselor, but that was not in the segment. I am by no means a liar. I spoke the truth. However, the church failed to state that along with the first counselor's statement, he also stated that Michael has a history of this behavior." So there is another instance where a leader of the church knew about Michael's behavior, and not even he called the police. So
When Michael Jensen hurt our children, that's after Spring had contacted the police and reported her children being raped. They tried to get him back here. They would not help.
Who?
The church would not help do that. The very first witness on the stand was Trooper Eschbach. He testified. I have documents, which I'm going to give to all the media today, that has the proof of that. The church still says it didn't happen, so I don't know. They got some very, very big eye by some. They're blind.
Okay.
But they still deny it. But what happened then, well, my wife had read about Trooper Eshbaugh, didn't know how Michael knew not to talk to him. I want to tell you why. The very morning that he came back, President Grow, Matt Wickham, Don Rye, who is works in the courthouse here protecting other children, supposedly, and his mom, Sandra Lee Jensen, they met at the Stake Center. Quickly had a meeting. They said, well, we can't let people know why you're home. So Darren came up with the lie that he'd hurt his back on a bicycle. So they figured, it would blow over and he'd be able to go back on his mission. He stayed with Matt Wickham until Matt Wickham's daughter and grandchildren came in town. So he wanted to protect them. That is when he came to me, because my oldest son and Michael Jensen were friends throughout church. They grew up together through Scouts and through Young Men's. They came to me and he asked me, he said, not his brother, but he called me that. I want to know if Michael could stay with you all a couple of weeks because my daughter's coming in, my grandchildren are there, and we don't have room for him. Had no idea. No idea that he was a sexual predator. Being kind-hearted as we are, we took him in. And, but that is when he hurt and molested our children. Didn't know. My one son, who has he's working with his lawyer right now at the church. He had actually punched Michael Jensen in the face. I came out and asked what had happened. He said, Dad, he had grabbed me by my privates and it wasn't just an accident grab. So I sat him down and asked what happened. He said, oh, it's just an accident. We were wrestling. Again, I had no red flags. But again, I told him, I said, well, there's no more wrestling in the house. That way it don't happen. That night at the Stake Center, I saw President Grow because I was coming out of my meeting. He was his, and we were talking. He said, well, how's it going with Michael in your house? I said, well, it's going pretty good. I said, my other son punched him in the face today. He started laughing. He said, yeah, I talked to him about that. He said, I talked to him about that. And he said, kids will be kids. Again, he put this freaking predator in our home. He knew that. And, he laughed it off there. He could have said, Tom, I need to talk to you. He could have told me, get him out, get him out. But he didn't. He laughed it off. Another thing that I really want to talk about just a little bit is about the church, what the church does, which they've denied. The evidence is there. They are in these packets I'm going to give to all the media. They can't lie for transcripts and depositions, okay? And it's all public record. Please look at these things, and you'll see the facts that they still deny. President Gross sent Tony Nagel, who was his executive secretary, to my house to give me the pamphlets that told me. These pamphlets are from statements from prophets, general authorities, and from their scriptures, stating that members are to find no fault in their leaders. Attacking or reporting a leader to the police, church leaders when they do wrong. We are sinning if we report that. The stake president knows that people love you, they respect you. You need to get them to come to the stake president and not to talk to anybody else. Well, as anyone knows, the case has followed it. No way, that did not happen. I went to anybody that would listen. I talked to the families. I tried to get the church to go talk to them. Alice and I said, do something in the pulpit. Tell about what's going on. Ask these parents. They wouldn't do it. They said, no, we can't do that because we can't hurt the Jensen family.
Oh.
So myself and the other parents, we started calling. We started seeing people in church. And we say, did Michael Jensen stay with you? Did you need to talk to your children? So, they called me back in the stake center and Tom, you do not have the priesthood authority to be going out talking to people. So you can't do that. I said, well, I'm doing it. And it's just evil. I wanted it covered up and I refused to do it. Okay. Now, what we're going to do now is turn the time over to media and to you. If you have a question for anybody on the panel, you can ask it. But we ask you to be nice, polite, and don't be rude, please. But we will start. If anybody would like to ask anybody, please feel free to ask any questions you would like.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I wanted to ask Sam, have you seen people begin to rise up? Have you heard any stories of people saying, I'm not sending my kid in to a bishop's interview. I don't care if they don't go on the temple outing. It's not gonna-
Absolutely, yes. So you're exactly right, Rochelle. The power lays in our hands, in the parents' hands. They should be, they're the front lines that should be concerned about their kids. Yes, there are a lot of parents that have reached out to me and shared that they no longer allow the one-on-one or the sexual questions. I've had other parents that have left the church so that their children wouldn't be subjected to this. I've had.
Yay, thank you.
So it's empowerment, but these massive organizations, I didn't know the Mormon Church was so damn wealthy and powerful and does all the crap that they did to these wonderful families and these kids. That's why we have to have a movement, to gather our voices together.
Yep.
If 30 of us speak out, well, somebody might listen.
Right.
If 5,000 of us speak out, people are going to listen.
Yes, thank you, Sam.
Then your question will be answered. They're closer, they can hit us.
It's just really quick, but I wanted to also answer with Rochelle what she had said. Yes, Sam is correct. We need to make sure that Mormon families understand that they need to say no to these interviews. The other thing that we also need to make aware, though, is that these children are being taught sex education and health awareness in schools. These are people who are not correctly trained to do these classes. And in most cases, parents are only informed through pamphlets that they're given by teachers. It's very important that the public understands what to look for and what happens with pedophilia. Pedophilia is a career. It's being conditioned as anything else. And we need to be able to help children, and we need to help parents to be able to understand what they're looking for, how to ask about it, and be able to know who they're reporting to so that they feel safe in reporting what they're doing.
Thank you.
Rochelle had talked about empowerment and standing together. Spring has been asked.
Who is Spring?
Spring is one of the mothers that was called a liar through the church in response to the Vice News article that we have set straight that she did not lie. And she was asked, were our families picked because they thought that we were weak? And she said, yeah, I think they did pick our families because they thought that they were weak. But we were taught too well to do what was right. And we are too much of mama bears to sit back and let this happen to our kids again or any other kid. So we have the empowerment that we have stood together through the hell of the last 6 years, and that we have met awesome people like Sam, McKenna, Mary and Shelley.
I'm married, this is true. But I did.
You got it right.
You got it right.
And so we have learned that it's so hard by yourself, but when we have an extended family, we've got it made, and we're not going to shut up.
Okay, well, we got to end here. I want to thank everybody for coming out, the panel. Thank you. Some of you traveled long distances. Thank you all very much.
We need a round of applause for Conf.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you all for coming in and drive safe home.
Thank you.